The lesson plan that I've chosen to work on is comparing two sets of data using a measure of central tendency or a measure of spread. So I'd start the lesson by putting up the learning objective, as you can see here. And I would, below that, immediately put down the success criteria that a student will need to be successful in that lesson. That would be on the board to start with. I normally start lessons with a do now. So this one over here that I would be presenting as a slide, giving the students maybe 10 minutes to review work that they've done before. So here I'm asking them to calculate a mean, and I'm also asking them to review what is a dot plot and how one interprets a dot plot. In slide 3, I'm going to concentrate on the vocabulary for a few minutes. I'm going to see that we thoroughly understand what the word comparison means when we work with two data sets. What things are we going to compare? What things are we looking for? All right, and we'll get feedback from the class, from the students, to try and get their own understanding of what a comparison means and how we set it up. For a 10-minute plenary, I'm going to ask them to look maybe at 2 videos, okay, which sort of describe what a comparison is, and they'd be able to use their laptops, a bit of blended learning here. And then I would, after I've done that, I'd ask them to have a look at these 2 comparison explanations here and see if we can't simplify that down to a couple of key points so that they understand exactly what to do when they're using a measure of center or when they're using a measure of spread. All right, so here I'm hoping that students could look at these videos either on their own laptops, or I could project these. In the next slide, I'm going to put up a practice example, nice straightforward one, so that the students can see exactly how we're going to work on this. So I give the statistics, ask them a question, whose marrows would you prefer to buy, and then say, how do we answer that question with evidence or proof to back it up? And so hopefully students would then have picked up that they're going to need to find an average of some sort for both these farmers before we can start to make a comparison. In the next slide, I'll suggest to the students that they need to put the data into a table so that they can see more clearly the differences and similarities between the 2 sets of data. This will make life a lot easier, a lot clearer, and a lot more straightforward, so they can see the numbers that they're going to be referring to. In the next slide, I've used a differentiated example, a much easier one with only 3 sets of data for students who struggle to work on, and the questions relating to comparison, you can see over here, are much more simple and straightforward to help students who may struggle with the concepts of comparison, the concept of median or mean or mode, and the concept of a spread or range. In the next slide, as well, that I would suggest that the students who are doing the differentiated example also use a table. It just makes life a lot easier to see the numbers they're dealing with. And then I would refer them to possible tricks that you can come across in data, things that make data a little bit difficult to deal with. So in this case over here, we've got an outlier. I'd encourage some discussion on when is a number an outlier, and then suggest that if they find what they think is an outlier, we have to change the method of comparison. So that's the point I'm making here. So from this, we could maybe get a couple of classwork examples to come up from the class and see how we could compare if we're using the median. So this would be a bit of extension work, perhaps, where you're putting in an outlier either at this end or at that end of the data. Then I'd spend 5 minutes working on how to write the comments, have the students write down the mean of the first set of data, the mean of the second data, make the comparison, the mean of which one is higher, and then write the sort of correct terminology. On average, the marrows of farmer A or B were longer. So we need this sort of terminology so that the simple comment on comparison is very straightforward. Okay, so I would then do the same with the idea of spread. So you can see over here the range of the 2 sets of data, which range is bigger, and then we'd use these 2 comparison sentences with the correct vocabulary. Okay, so and that would also probably cause some quite interesting discussion. What does varied mean? What does consistent mean? So I put some definitions to help the students there, and I want them to be aware of how to write these two comparative comments so that they make sense. And then for the remainder of the lesson, I'm suggesting that if students had laptops, they could do a bit of blended work here. So these particular websites give some quite nice examples on what I've covered. They give practice examples, they give multiple choice examples that they can work through to sort this out. It's this one at the bottom here has a quiz, and that'll work quite nicely as well. And then I could end, depending on how long this takes, I could end with an exit ticket where the student might have to summarize some of the key, I could put up a question where the student might have to summarize some of the key points or key vocabulary that we've done in the lesson, or I could put up a table and ask the students to write a comparative comment that they've already noted down to make sure they understand the concept. So that's how I would structure the lesson. Probably would fit quite nicely in about a 50-minute period. Could be open to quite a bit of discussion when we talk about vocabulary and how we know what to do when data has an outlier. So that could be quite an interesting discussion point, and extension examples could come from that.